Welcome to Conversations With. My name is Shaley Hoogendoorn, and I live with bipolar 2 disorder. Sharing with others is healing, both individually and collectively. Sharing our stories will educate others, bring more understanding, shed more light, and smash more stigma. Our voices need to be heard. Our stories aren't over yet. This is bipolar. Hi everyone, welcome back to This is Bipolar. I am so excited for another episode today. I am Shaley Hoogendoorn. If you aren't already a listener, I live with bipolar 2 disorder. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I teach elementary school, and I do some speaking. So my pronouns are she, her, and I live in Vancouver, Canada. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that I started subscriptions on Instagram. If you don't know what that is, you subscribe at $6.99 US a month, and you get a whole bunch of extra content. And the main big free thing that you get is there's always an extra bonus, exclusive, all those fancy words, episode on every one that I will have in. You get a special, it's kind of like my feed, but it's like our own special feed just for us subscribers. And we even have a chat where you have direct access to me and the others in there. And so far we're building it, and it's just a really beautiful thing to be able to check in with each other every day. So if you love the podcast, if you want to support the work I'm doing, I would be so forever grateful to see you in there. And if you have trouble, some people are like, what do I press? Just message me. I will walk you through it. And because we're all in this together. So I am super excited. I got a hold of my guests very last minute, so I am so grateful for other spontaneous bipolar folks. I'm just going to get my friend Lee to introduce himself to you.
Yeah, so my name is Lee Formella. I also live with bipolar. I live with bipolar 2. I was diagnosed back in 2017. So little tidbit here, I started my Benefits of Bipolar channel on Instagram, and one of the very first people I ever followed was Shaley from This is Bipolar. That is no joke. You were one of probably the very first 3 or 4 bipolar, I think my girlfriend sent me your page, and I was like, oh, look at that, somebody I can follow. So it's
Awesome.
really cool. It kind of came full circle. I remember moving in this summer and I listened. I think you interviewed Julie again from she came back and you interviewed her, and I listened to that. I'm like, oh, maybe someday. So it's really cool to be here. So I wanted to say that first. But no, I live in Rochester, Minnesota. My girlfriend and I moved here about 8 months ago. Basically, life was chaotic beforehand, but now that I got things a little bit more in order, I spend as much time with her and my family and outside as I possibly can. I found that surrounding myself with them just makes me happy. It gives me a better chance of being, somewhat even. And so when you've lived your life that way for so long, I think I've really tried to prioritize every day what matters to me most. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's mental health. That's talking about that. That's spending time with my siblings and my girlfriend, my family, and getting outside. I absolutely love being outside. I snuck in. It's randomly 70 here in Minnesota on March 11th, and so I snuck out a little run, and that's kind of my
Nice.
favorite thing to do. So,
Is
yeah,
that
no,
warm? I know nothing about
that
your
is
your degrees.
very, very. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's like
Math is
what?
hard.
Yeah,
Math is hard, but that's warm.
divided by 2 plus 39. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Warm.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's warm, so I don't know exactly, but it's like, so that's typical summer weather, and
Okay.
so our average is about 40 degrees Fahrenheit difference.
Okay.
So usually it's like in 2 days it's going to be about, I don't know, whatever, let's say 3 Celsius, a few degrees above freezing in 2 days.
Okay.
So it's an outlier, and I
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah, so I try and do
Yeah.
that as much as I can, and yeah, that's
That's
just a
so
very brief
interesting that
overview.
you said that, because this weekend we're supposed to get up to 19. So our 0 is actually 0, and
Right,
then
right.
freezing's underneath. So 19 is warm. So anyways, and I can almost feel it in my bones and in my body. I was telling Lee before we started, starting to feel the early warning signs of hypomania. I'm forgetting things. I opened my drawer to get a spoon before the interview, and I had left half a cucumber in there from maybe lunch. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
So looking out for those early warning signs. But yeah, Lee, I would just love to dive into your story. And these are my favorite interviews because I've watched a few of your things, I've followed you, but I actually don't know your story. So this is going to be exciting for me as well. So I would love to start with, when did you notice that something was different or wrong? Did you notice maybe someone around you told you that maybe that wasn't that it was different? I'd love to hear that.
Well, my story, I guess, is a little bit longer. I wish there had been a moment or a couple moments where really anybody had noticed. A lot of people noticed. We all just thought it was poor behavior, poor decision making. He's just a guy. He just lives in Madison. He's just in college. And really, so I mean, I lived a weird, different, life. I knew I was different as probably as young as 13,
Mhm.
and knew that I was trying to fit in with everybody else as young as that. I mean, high school, I knew I didn't fit in. I knew I was different. I just had no idea, like most other people, what that meant. But things progressively got worse. College got a little bit worse. I found alcohol. I started drinking, and then I
Mhm.
drank more and more and more. And a couple of things happened my senior year that really took a turn. I ended up getting addicted to gambling for like the next 10 years, 11
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
Started trigger warning. I self harmed myself a couple of times that year and off and on then. And really, that's when again, there's going to be a lot of them. So, trigger warning
Yeah.
the episode.
Yeah. Most
The,
people know take care of yourself. In
yeah,
this episode, like all episodes,
yeah,
we talk
yeah.
about hard things. So if you have to walk away and come back, just take care of yourself, lovely listeners. But yes, keep
Just
going.
want to cover that now because
Yes.
it'll be too many from here. But yeah, I mean, I was basically suicidal every day. I mean, it was just a daily battle then from about 21 till when I got diagnosed at 33.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of times that a lot of people showed some sign of, concern,
Yeah.
some level of concern, but then I do well for a little while, having no idea that those were little stretches of hypomania that it was exhibiting. Like I had this drive, I had a will to get better. Maybe I could control things during the day at least. Wouldn't black out because you could drink everything. Hypomania is kind of like a mix of doing Adderall and nonstop coffee all day or Coke. I mean, whatever you want to call it,
Exactly. Yes.
it's incredible. I mean, I
Mhm.
just went for a run and like I said, you forgot your cucumber this morning. I forgot my computer this morning. So I think I'm with you on the hypomanic stretch, and
Yeah.
so but you can accomplish more, especially if it's unchecked like mine was when you compared that with the abject depression
Yeah.
and inability to get through a day or a night without, I mean, literally getting through a minute, it seemed like I was getting better. Now, of course, as we all know, especially without medication, 3 or 4 days, 5 days later, or 2 weeks later, the absolute bottom would fall out.
Yeah.
So that process repeated itself about every 10 days for 15 years.
Every 10 days.
It could be, yeah. I mean, there
Yeah.
were
Wow.
times. So I moved home. There was a time in there about 10 years ago. I moved home and I quit drinking for 6 weeks,
Mm.
but I stopped sleeping also as much. And then went back to school and then I ended up with pain pills and that
Mhm.
was it. Right back
Yep.
into, so I never got medication, never got diagnosis during that time. So it was a brief respite, if you will, but the problem is without the medication, it actually got worse then. So
Yeah.
because there was that brief respite and I thought things were getting better, the despair was deeper, the
Mm.
depression was deeper, and so that started the next 5-year stretch of, so really it truly was just an absolute cycle of every 7 to 14 days or sometimes as few as 3. I mean, there
Wow.
were times, Shayla, where I was essentially going through a mixed episode for months at a time, but just being unaware of it.
Yeah.
uh, so I mean, by the time I got diagnosed, I basically brutalized every relationship I had ever been in. I was doing well at work, but tenuously at best. I mean, if I
Yeah.
wasn't working at a restaurant or a car dealership, I'd have been fired 100 times.
Right. Right.
That's why I fit in at those places. I could get
Yeah.
away with being an abject disaster because I still had enough like talent and smarts just to pull it together enough to do well 50%
Yeah.
of the time.
or wow them, and they'll hold on to the wow when you
Exactly.
crash, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So in August of 2019, basically the short story is I had enough of
Mm,
life. I was doing incredible. I think it made the most money I ever made that month. It was
wow.
beautiful weather. Everything should have made me happy, and everything made me miserable. And
Mm,
I got in the car, and I was just basically like, "Dad, I'm going to start driving." I said, "I love you. I'm not going to kill myself. I don't want you to worry, but I cannot live this life anymore. I cannot handle it. I cannot do it.
yeah.
It has been too much. It's been 15 years. Nothing has worked. I'm out. Like I'm out." And randomly had my first doctor appointment the next morning, and he said, "Can you stay through the morning?"
Mm,
Said, "I don't know why you set up a doctor's appointment, but you did. Can you just
yeah.
stay through the morning?" And I ended up being super honest,
Yeah.
importantly, with my
Yes.
doctor when he asked me those questions that everybody just kind of breezes through. "How are you
Mhm.
feeling? Have you been depressed? Have you been this?" And I said yes to everything essentially.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, that's how I ended up getting a referral to my psychiatric APMP and my diagnosis. So it was an incredibly slow buildup of avalanches of trauma and disaster, that finally led to like, there's nowhere else to turn.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe the doctor can help. Who would have
Yeah.
thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? But
Who knows, right? When
yeah.
you were in, like, in high school or in, was it college or university?
Hmm.
College? Yeah.
Hmm.
When you were in there,
University work, Shaley, you're good.
okay. I'm
I
like
know what you mean.
I'm like, the other day there was a show and I was like, freshman and sophomore, like I couldn't figure out which one was which. It was just like, I'm like, those things are hard. I can barely keep regular things in my brain. But yes, okay,
Sure.
university. When you
Yeah.
were in university, you said that that's when you started drinking, which is really hard, right? Because it's
Yeah.
kind of like this thing online or whatever. This is what university students
Yeah.
do. So it's really hard for like friends and family to watch out for it, right? Because I mean, I know a lot of people had their stages, and in fact, there wasn't a lot to do in my small town, so I was actually done my large amount of drinking by the time I actually was supposed to be allowed
Ah,
to drink.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm curious about like what would your what would your say hypomanic stretch look like? Would you make it to class? I'm curious what it would look like on the outside, and then I'm also curious how that felt in your body.
Oh gosh, when I was hypomanic, not on meds, especially when I was younger, it was fantastic. It's when I
Mm,
got all my homework done. I mean, like whether I channeled hypomania by like not drinking, you know what I
mm.
mean? Like, because
Yep.
like towards the end of the semester, say I would stop drinking for the most part and live in the library. Well, I could live in the library for 21 hours a day, go get 3 hours of sleep, get up and go do it again. I mean, it was just like it didn't matter. So for a week at the end of the semester, I would make sure I got my A's, B's, or C's or whatever I needed to get through and get them done, or same
Wow.
thing on
Yeah.
the midterms or whatever else. So like that allowed me to bear down and get through college. Now, the problem was, of course, inside everything's burning,
Yeah.
and but the confidence is incredible.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I had all this energy. So I was like, I'm going to go play basketball for 3 hours. And I was the best one on the court because all those questions and worries and anything
Yeah.
else, and like, am I going to make this shot? Can I actually make this move? Can he beat me? It's all gone. I'm
Yeah.
going to make the shot. Nobody can stop me. And the confidence is incredible. But
Mhm.
then again, to converse that, then the next day you show up, or 2 weeks later you show up, and I might have been just an absolute shell of myself trying to play
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah.
Can't make pass, can't shoot, can't really do anything. But the whole time you're also so utterly confused.
Yeah.
And the confusion is the hardest part because like I was incredible 2 days ago. I'm
Yeah.
incapable of life now.
Yeah.
So that like just tears at you slowly and over time. And so like it felt great. Those are my only like good times when I look back on it. All of my like positive memories are when I was hypomanic. This is
Mm.
like the only times that I was halfway able to like even function in life. But of course, you're too excited. I mean, I get
Yeah.
kicked out of basketball games because I was hypomanic, and if somebody
Yeah.
said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing, I never fought, never hit anybody, but I could use some words nobody wanted to hear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you dealt with, I know I deal with it. Did you deal with like anger and frustration? Like if things weren't going your way or people didn't believe you or give you like the freedom to chase the things that would, that we're always chasing the next high, whether that be a substances or just the next thing that's going to feel good. I know in me, it's just like, even though I know the consequences, it's much different now on meds, but even though I knew the consequences of staying up all night, it's like it just felt like this, I don't know, it just felt like this little piece of cake or something, like I just couldn't
Yeah.
resist doing those things. But yeah, did you get frustrated and feel angry?
Oh, I mean, anger was one of my biggest issues.
Mm,
I mean, so I had a, I'll say, bad experience with therapy, and that he didn't tell me to go get medicated.
mm,
But well, the reason I went, and he was a good therapist otherwise, is that I had anger issues. I
mm.
was just always angry because, again, when you don't know how to fit in society, and everybody tells you that like you should be able to, you have everything you need to. What's wrong with you? You know, like you just get angry, and you. So the other part of it too is I think our brains work differently. It's been proven. So when I have 1,000 ideas or 1,000 thoughts going through my head, that was overwhelming for me just to be alone in my own head. Now, let alone trying to explain to somebody else how I feel, which never happened, or if somebody else interrupted that to tell me to do it a different way that made less sense.
Yep.
It's just furious,
And they
and I was
don't get, this is what they don't get, is that what I think, okay? But I feel like we think so quickly that I've thought of all the ideas and thought of why it wouldn't work.
hmm
So I don't give anybody else's ideas the time of day because I'm like, well, that's not going to work because of and I had to work out with my husband that, like, even though I might still think that have gotten to the conclusion, I need to consider that, you know what I mean? Consider his ideas and maybe that he had thought of something that I didn't, because I kind of feel a little bit like I have the secrets to the universe, and I kind of feel sorry for other people when they used to pre-meds try to, tell me I might be wrong or something. I was just like felt sorry for them. I'm like, they just don't know. They
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I just didn't. So yeah, it's really, you're right. It's really hard to explain. And now I think, like, did you struggle during hypomania with any type of criticism, even constructive criticism?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I was always bad at taking criticism because I had zero confidence in myself because of I had no, I couldn't get that consistency, so I didn't trust myself.
Yeah.
So, I was so hard on myself that when basically if somebody else said it, it was like confirming my negative self-belief anyways. And so
Yes.
it's just like them piling on, you know what I mean? Even though they didn't
Yeah.
know that. They weren't
Yeah.
aware that I had already told myself all these things that they
Yeah.
probably, were adding on to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely because I didn't need anybody else telling me that I already was having a hard time with it. Or it's like, wait, you need me to fix one more thing? I can't. I'm already working on these 100 things. What do you mean? I don't have room for that, And so
Yeah.
I did, and even I mean, I think for me because I was undiagnosed, and I don't know when you got diagnosed, but like because of everything I went through before, it's taken a good amount of time for me to continue to learn those. Like when you just said that about your husband, I'm like, huh, I do tend to talk my girlfriend out of ideas a little too often. I mean, I usually right, but I
Yeah.
kid. I'm actually working on that in therapy. Like
Yeah.
it's one of
It's
those. It's like,
hard.
but at work, and I know we want to talk about that a little bit more later. But at work, I started a new job, and I'm full of new ideas. So here I am in a meeting. I'm like, oh, I had this one idea, and they're like, yeah, and I was like,
Oh,
y'all thought about that like two
you
years
already
ago.
did.
I
Yeah.
knew. I'm so sorry. It seems all new to me. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's still something we have to. It's a constant battle. It's a not. We're not cured of it.
Yeah,
The thoughts
exactly.
still
And
go
it's like,
through. It's a daily, constant
yes.
battle.
And
Yeah.
it's like the symptoms still come, but it's like before there was before medication, there was no room in the chaos of my
Right.
brain to be able to think of a coping mechanism, let alone, and that's how I kind of explain medication,
True.
is that it mutes things so that I actually can have reflective capacity. I actually can, like, if you tell me to take a breath in the height of things, like,
Oh.
there's no way. And
Oh.
speaking of the thing with my husband, is he always laughs because when I first started, I would like, it was totally fake. I'd be like, "Oh, that's an interesting idea you have." He's like, "You're ridiculous." I'm like, "I'm trying," or like, "Oh, let me consider your idea." Yeah, it's wrong. So bad. But yeah, it's really hard to explain. I'm curious, are you more of an extrovert or an introvert? And not just like despite the hypomania and the depression,
Yeah.
like what energizes you, mostly being around people or not?
Well, being around people definitely energizes me. So, like at times, right? And I mean, I bartended and was a
Oh,
server,
okay.
sold cars for 15 years. So, but I was what I realized after a while, I was forced extrovert. So I always thought I
Okay.
was. Like I always
Ah,
really thought I was an extrovert. When I was in college, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. I love being around people. I love going out. But I was always drunk.
ah,
I didn't actually love it because the minute I got there, I'd order two double captain and diets and a shot because that's what it took for me to enjoy being out in public. I just
yeah,
didn't know that. I wasn't self-aware at all
yeah,
enough to realize that I'd have been better off sitting at home.
right.
Right. So like
Ah,
that self-awareness takes a while.
it does. And then I know I'm an extrovert, I 100% am, but
Yeah.
I had to be friends with everybody, or if I had a birthday party, like, I would invite someone I just met, which was, some of them have become my greatest friends, but one of the things I had to learn is that I took
Yeah.
0 downtime, and I think looking back now, it's because I was afraid of my thoughts and afraid of my brain,
Yeah.
especially after I had my kids, because I was home with them, right? And they aren't interacting yet, and like playing Barbies forever is not exciting. And Lego, I got like I got a good awesome 20 minutes in me, but after that, and I
Yeah.
realized, like, until medication and even for a long time after, I didn't know how to be with myself.
No. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
scared
Yeah.
of myself, and it's years and years. So, like you, I was diagnosed when I was 32.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I had gone to doctors before, depression, depression, depression.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's what you said about the undoing of not just like just habits as well that were survival skills, really, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I know a lot of people judge, people with addiction, whether it's drugs, whether it's gambling, whether it's this, but those are it's be a lot of times it isn't a choice. It's because you're just trying to feel better and you're just trying to live. And although I don't endorse it, I don't drink at all because I can't do anything.
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it half-ass, but I can't do anything half. I'm like all in or I'm out.
Yep.
I just know
Yep.
myself. I know I have an
Yep.
addictive personality, and so I just think that it's really hard to explain. And I think some people are like, "Yeah, but you're fine now, like just have a drink or just,"
No.
and I'm
No.
just like, "I can't even." How do you
Yeah.
feel? Like, tell me about that. Like, was it hard to get sober? Did you get sober like after your diagnosis? I want to hear about that
God,
little time.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, it was so, like, figuring out I was an introvert was, so but that basically meant that I just drank alone then for, like, the
Oh,
last 10 years, like, literally, it was fine, like, it was my happy place.
yeah,
Sitting there just getting really drunk on my couch alone without anybody else bugging me or judging me, right? I
yeah,
could do it on my own, and I dealt with the consequences. There was nobody, yeah. So no, I definitely drank actually for the first 18 months after I got diagnosed
yeah,
heavily.
yeah,
And that was awful. Because I started at 25 milligrams of Mictal and worked my way up to 200. So
yeah,
that took about 6 months.
yeah,
Thought I was going to be better.
yeah,
I was, like everybody, looking for the easy way out in some ways. I mean, there was also you're hoping because life had been
yeah,
so god awful the whole time that you're
yeah,
like, okay, this is getting a little bit better. Maybe once I have the medication, life will be better. It was. I like to say I was less suicidal. It wasn't
mm,
all day, every day. And I didn't black out as often. I still
okay,
drank, but I drank a little bit less. But with about that 18-month point, a little bit less than that was about Christmas. I think this was 3 years ago now. Yeah, just over 3 years ago now. And I was still drinking. So leading up to that, my dad pulled me out of a bar 4 or 5 times. I had lost, I think the second time I had $1,200 in my bank account. It was the most I had ever had in my bank account.
Mm,
32 years old. I finally saved up for the first time ever. I
mm,
lost it all one night. So
shoot.
lost the next paycheck 2 weeks later. Had my dad
Mm,
pull me out again. And I we have a family chat, and I said, guys, I love you. I'm not going to hurt myself. Don't don't take it that way, but again, I'm done. I have to leave the family chat. I can't keep coming home for stuff. I can't keep doing this to you guys. I can't let it is
yeah,
unfair to all of you. You have families now. You have this. I'm I'm never, if medication only got me to this point, I'm never going to be able to be, what do you want, like, however you want to say it, like an addition to the family. I'll just be always drawing energy from the family. I'll always be the problem and something, buddy, that you guys have to take care of. And I was sick of doing that. And so I almost lost more hope, like
yeah,
the first year and a half after being medicated. And then fortunately, my sister called me and she's like, okay, that's fine. But if you do this time, it's not going to be an easy welcome back, dude. Like, you
yeah,
can't do this anymore.
yeah,
I have two boys now that are two. I can't have them growing up with this as their, so what are we going to do?
yeah,
And it was kind of the first time that, like, well, my dad saw me in my worst and didn't judge me. He came back the next time. He came back the next time. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
she called me and said, what are we going to do? And then she asked me the hard questions nobody wanted to ask me.
yeah.
Are you going to therapy? Have
Eesh.
you looked for a therapist? Have you worked out once? Are you still drinking half a bottle to a bottle every night?
Yeah,
Like what have you done to try? I love you. I know you do it. I know you, but what have you done next?
yeah,
What was that next step? And whatever reason, it's like, okay. And so I took the first step, which was giving my dad my debit card. I was still drinking, but I gave my dad my debit card so I couldn't like lose all of my money and just be
yeah,
devastated.
yeah.
2 weeks after that, I met my girlfriend, who I'm still with today.
Mm,
And the like day after we hung out the first time, I went out to the bar again. Shaley, I must have had $100 in my pocket from work or something. I don't know. And I went
yeah.
out to the, and I got so drunk I lost my keys. I lost my phone. I
Oh
lost like
no.
my soul, my hope, because I was like, really, I'm gonna do this again. And for some reason, between what my sister said, that like 2 weeks of like the smallest progress you've ever seen, but
Yeah,
that one decision is like, okay, maybe I can make another decision. And I was like, I don't want to do this again because there's no point in dating this girl who I think is really cool.
yeah,
I'm just going to go through that whole cycle all over again,
yeah,
which is the last thing I wanted to do. And so, like, that day, I didn't quit, but I knew I wanted to slowly, like, I kept telling myself I could drink less.
yeah.
And then I kept drinking less. And I kept drinking less. And I kept drinking less. And finally, like, about a year and a half after that, I think I had this year I've had one half a glass of wine. When I got into grad school, I bought a really nice glass of wine, took a few sips, and handed the rest to my girlfriend. Because same
Mm,
thing, I
yeah,
feel it immediately.
yeah,
The second alcohol touches my lips, I feel like a different person.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be a shot, it could be a sip. And that's just my answer. So like for me, thank God, over time I was able to build up that confidence in myself and realize that it's not worth it.
yeah.
I could go downstairs tonight and have a glass of scotch. I love scotch, but
Mm,
it's not worth it because then it's a
yeah,
2 or 3 hour process afterwards to get my brain back to where I want it to be.
yeah, yeah. And I
So
think that that's one. I I always think maybe that'll go away. Maybe it'll go away. Me wondering or being tempted. Like, I'm like, is there ever going to be a day that, that and it's not a day. Is there ever going to be times where I'm not, tempted to sabotage myself? And once I realized that that's more of a symptom,
yeah,
that I was able to deal with it better instead of just being like, "You suck," which makes you wanna do the thing that's gonna hurt you, right? For me,
yeah,
when
yeah,
I was at my worst, it was more in my depressions, I had, like, a binge eating disorder, right? So, like, till I would feel sick, right? But I would go to the doctors, and I wouldn't have it all year round. It would only be when I was depressed. They're like, "No, you don't have an eating disorder." I'm like, "Okay." And
yeah,
because I thought it had to be like not eat or throw up, and I just completely just ate till I felt sick and then exercised my brain off to try and it was so bad. And
Yep.
I think, yeah, and I even now around like holidays and stuff, or when there's like certain things around the house, I always want to like have more, right? And I still have to think about it, even though I'm like I'm not bothered by it on a regular basis, but there's still always that little, I don't know, I don't want to say
Well,
voice, but it's not a voice, but there's always this little, it's so tempting.
it's the illness. That
Yeah,
is the illness.
that is.
I mean, in and of itself, and I think that's the hardest thing for us to accept. And
Yeah.
that's understandable because it's still tempting for us to think we're less than because of it.
Right.
Because not nobody else, but anybody outside of a mental illness has to take a medication that like they don't have to like accept that like their brain doesn't work
Yeah.
or that it's tricking them,
Yeah.
right? And like that's all our brains are doing in
Yeah.
those moments. But like now we just have the medication, like you said, that maybe gives us a minute to realize it.
Yeah.
4 years, 5 years for me of experience, or 3 years really of experience of being like, no, I think I got this,
Yeah.
and that confidence. But like outside of that, our brains are still telling us every day we
Yeah.
don't got this
Yeah.
because no matter how great I feel, if I'm like, ooh, shoot, the minute anything goes, I'm like, am I getting depressed? Am I getting hypomanic? We can't
Yeah.
trust our own.
Yeah.
The
Which
minute
then
we
adds
do,
another layer, right, of this
yeah,
hypervigilance that it's very, very hard to live in the moment, right? I
yeah,
find it very, very hard. And I remember when people used to talk about mindfulness, I was like, Psh, whatever. Like I can't even like, no. I used to thought it used to be like for like an hour or
insane.
whatever.
Yeah,
And now I realize like, okay, 60 seconds, yay me.
yeah,
Right? Or
yeah.
I know sometimes, and I know people that are
Active.
listening are probably going to roll their eyes, like I used to, but honestly, just taking just those teeny times of trying to ground yourself. And I live in my head. You said you go for runs. I've been trying to do not just exercise, but more like somatic practices, fancy name
Yeah,
for like body work,
yeah,
because I've
yeah.
done so much therapy. Do you do that? Is the exercise your one
Oh,
way to do that?
no, I mean, I keep trying to find ways of doing that because
Mhm.
I, like you, I mean, so I public speak too. And my
Right?
favorite thing lately, in the last 4 or 5 I've done, I take a little break in the middle and I go, now it's time for me to talk about cliches
Ah,
because they work. And I always laughed. So you said earlier, you said something that hit me about, like basically we were surviving, so you didn't have certain skills. It's like, Shaley, I didn't have life skills. I'm learning things at 37. I mean, I forgot what it was. Like in the fall, I was like, oh, I learned how to like stay on top of those bills or like this or like that. Well, in the fall, I sat down on a park bench for the first time in my life. I made
wow.
a post about it because like you said, it's like, wait, I'm gonna sit down for 2 minutes and
Yeah,
just look around, but do you know what's gonna happen in here? I got to keep moving and thinking about what I'm gonna do next because I have to distract myself from the brain. So yeah, I mean, that's half of therapy. I mean, that's why I
yeah,
recommend therapy so much is that's where you learn those skills.
yeah.
I'm kind of mad at her, but my therapist was like, "Yeah, dude, just get a bird feeder." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll get a bird feeder." She's like, "And then just take 5 minutes and watch them. That's going to get you out of your head." And I was like, kind of cool. She didn't realize what she was doing because now I have two suet feeders, three bird feeders, and I'm out there watching the damn birds all day
You're
long.
writing bird watching books for sure.
I'm not writing them, but I might have gotten one. Um, I might have bought one. I mean, I'm sitting over there trying to label them,
I
right?
love
But
it so much.
all these things I never thought I would do. Drink water, go outside for a minute. I mean,
Yeah,
I think you live where it's cold too. A
yeah,
few weeks ago, I was having a really, 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 really bad night, really tough night. We don't have those very often, but we still have them.
still do.
20 degrees outside. I was like, okay. And I went outside for 30 seconds
Yep.
because it made me breathe in a big fresh, like really cold air. It shocked my system a little bit.
Yeah,
And you come back with a different perspective.
it's true.
Anything, so the bird, whether it's birds, walking outside. I mean, I love outside. I can go be in forest all day long. The store, or I mean, research that says it's better for you, and for me, I can just tell you it's better for me. I
Yeah.
just love being outside, and it's cathartic. Gets me again to change my perspective. So yeah, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
I was I was 100% the person. I was like, okay, really, we're gonna do some breathing exercises. We're gonna do this, but
Yeah.
you can do it without. If you can't do it laying down, if you can't
Yeah.
do it sitting down, cross-legged,
Yeah.
humming, that's okay. It's just the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna do dishes, but I'm gonna make the decision to do dishes
Yeah.
and not think about anything and just relax
Yeah.
and get into the music or the
Yeah.
podcast. Turn on
Or
Shaley's
the
podcast.
water is hot, right? The water is
Yeah,
hot,
yeah,
or I
yeah.
am doing this, like even telling myself what I'm doing. So it's not that it snows maybe once a year, but I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm right by the ocean, but it rains.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
is gray and it rains, and some days it takes everything to get out there in the rain, but it's so refreshing. But yeah, you can do, meditative stuff, moving. It's just being present. I recently started doing a little bit of the tapping, and it's
Okay. Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool. I can't last
yeah.
very long, and like laugh at myself a little bit, but those kinds of little things,
It is
like
hard.
yeah,
I don't blame you. It's kind of hard to like take yourself seriously as you're like
yeah,
kind of playing with your collarbone. Like I
yeah.
understand what you're saying, but
Totally,
but it works.
but I
But it
find,
works.
like, just doing and I noticed that with, littles, like, K to 3 is what I usually teach,
Oh, okay,
that
cool.
the kids that were the bounciest or whatever, they, like, naturally, like, do things, and I noticed that it was helping them, and so I don't be like, "Sit still." I don't do that. I try and give
No.
them, like, a fidget or,
Mm,
this kinda thing, and I think that you're right. It's like medicine can only do so much. And we want a miracle cure, but and people get upset about me sometimes when I do the posts about it's incurable and chronic. But
yep.
actually understanding that was actually gave me more wiggle room and freedom and more commitment to doing the things that helped, because before I was always in the thought of, why am I not healed? Right? I don't
Yeah.
use that language. Why am I not? And it was always a me problem, not an
Yeah.
illness problem. So then,
Did you have to grieve that first? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but
no,
that's awesome.
always interrupt. That's our
But
language.
did you have to grieve that first? Because I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
to be able to jump into that would be too hard. You kind of have to like accept, like, okay, no, actually, because I feel like I went through the my life is over
Yep.
before being like, okay, well, I guess I got to make the best. But yeah, you answered
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that I had to grieve it a lot. Mostly I grieved what it could have been like, right?
Yep.
Because I remember my first winter that I wasn't depressed because I'm like clockwork. So mine is very like before, very like literally to the weeks that I would go in certain episodes and out of certain episodes, right? And so I felt like torn in between. I had dealt with the fact that I had mental illness because I had been diagnosed with depression so many times, right?
Oh,
So over
yeah.
like 10 or 15 years, I just thought that hypomania was regular me, right? I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know. I didn't
yeah,
know who
yeah,
goes for help
yeah.
when you feel that good, right?
Yeah.
A- And
Absolutely.
right? I didn't think I
Mhm.
had anger problems or whatever. And so I didn't totally think I didn't wanna identify with the word, and I self-stigmatize and I
Yeah,
stigmatize our community. I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not like them."
yeah, yep,
Right?
yep,
So bad.
yep,
I'm not and
for
then
sure.
but yet I found a freedom because I was holding on to something that explained it, and I
Yeah,
didn't have to. It took years and years, and I still work on self-stigma. I didn't have to think it was an extreme personality flaw and that I was unworthy of everything because I couldn't be quote unquote normal. So I held both at the same time. It was very confusing for
yeah,
the first like while. It was very
yeah.
confusing. And like you said, like the meds take a while, right? So you kind of convince yourself it's like, I had days where it's not working, they're probably wrong, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
I did? We can totally laugh at this, but it's wild. Um, I was like, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not.
Oh,
So I went to the doctor and I requested my entire file. It's under my bed. So I have like it's not like ginormous, but I have like the entire file and I read it all through. I don't recommend this. Okay. Y'all don't go get your file. And because sometimes they write things about you that are true, but yet they're very hard to read.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
and did that. But and so then once I saw it on paper, it felt more real. But yeah,
yeah,
talking about grieving it, and I do, and I still go on and off, right? Sometimes I wonder, one of my reoccurring thoughts is, oh, I'm not reaching my potential because my illness is holding
yeah,
me back, kind of thing. Do you ever feel like that?
yeah, all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, and, and that's where I guess you, I always like to say the second thought is what
Yep.
I've been working on.
Yep.
And like you said, the self stigma, the negative self talk. I mean, but yeah, they get all the time. It's only natural. I mean, and then I guess going back, like I was never diagnosed with anything because I never went in. So
Right.
I didn't know I was mentally until the minute I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So I was like, "You're
Yeah.
mentally ill. You have bipolar disorder." So, but looking back, it's like I can't, it hurts knowing how many missed opportunities I have. If I let it go there, which I did for a long time,
Yeah.
I went there for a long time because you do. I mean, I worked for the Badger basketball team at the University of Wisconsin and had a lot of opportunities coming out of there that I could have coached basketball, which is my favorite sport. I've talked about it on here. I
Yeah.
absolutely went on, got drunk, and got hammered, and blew the opportunities, and didn't even show
Yeah.
up for them, and because I knew I wouldn't be able to handle them,
Yeah.
I would not show up for an opportunity because I'm like, cool, what? Day 8, I'm gonna show up an hour late and smell like alcohol, like whiskey. Like that's not gonna go well. I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that was, you for me, it's like I feel like, and now it's okay. Like I don't want to, but
Yeah.
I lost 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like actually, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no going back, and I can't replace those job opportunities. I can't replace the resume that isn't there. I can't
Yeah.
replace a lot of those friendships. I mean, there's 2 or 3 best friends that I had in college that I dearly miss. I've reached out
Yeah.
to them, but those relationships are never going to be the same. I
Yeah.
burned that bridge, and I'm happy that they accept, talked back and forth on LinkedIn. That makes me
Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
because it's more contact than I had before, and it's only because I came this far.
Yeah.
But it still makes me sad that we're not close, and I know what
Yeah.
those relationships could have been.
Yeah.
Same with my siblings. So, but now it's like I think about that only to go, cool. I'm not wasting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't ask if you swear on this
Yeah, you can
podcast,
totally swear.
but I'm not wasting shit.
Yep.
I'm not wasting another day. I can't afford it because I've blown it. Not my fault, but not due to
Yeah.
my own fault. I
Yeah.
blew 15 years out of my life, and I don't
Yeah.
know how much more I'm gonna have.
Yeah.
And hopefully this stability lasts, but what if it doesn't? I want to make sure that I take advantage of all of this shit. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me sometimes when I'm talking to family members or other people because they're like,
Yeah.
well, but you can take a day off. And it's like, first of all, no, I can't,
Yep.
because the minute I turn my brain off is the minute I don't know when I'm getting it back.
Yep.
And I wasted all of them. You don't
Yeah.
have to be on with me, and I will take some days off, but not from talking about it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to take a day off from having a hard discussion about mental illness if somebody reaches out on Instagram or if somebody
Yep.
calls me in my family. I'm not taking that day off because I wasn't there before. I'm going to be there safely if
Yes.
I can,
Yes.
after taking care of myself.
Yes.
I've had to turn people down at times.
Mhm.
You always have to do that. But if I can safely do it, that's all I want to do,
Yeah.
because, yeah, I lost out on so much. So I grieved that for so long, but I wrote it down, and I think I try every day not to brush through it. So
That's
many
good.
people, and I yell at people. I yell at my girlfriend, not actually, but I'm like, honey, why are you
Yeah.
looking forward to the weekend? It's Monday.
Yeah.
We have more days to do things
Yeah.
in between. It doesn't all have to be rushed through. And I get why people do it, but it's like, I lost so much of it. I want to enjoy Monday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's
That's
Tuesday.
good.
I have a really long day. I've been hypomanic and I'm exhausted, but I might be able to have a little bit of fun at work. I get to go
Yeah.
learn some things about mental health and maybe, plan something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm luckier than hell to have gotten through alive. You know
Yes.
how lucky I am to have now found some stability, and how lucky I am that somebody gave me a chance to write
Mm.
for, and then now how lucky I am to have a job.
Yeah.
Thank God I get to go to work tomorrow morning and for another 4 days this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never had
And
that.
it's interesting because I find that without conscious effort, even a beautiful day, but there's one thing, my brain holds on to the negative, right?
Negative.
It really, I have to tell myself and I have to remind myself. And last year I had the
Really.
first, luckily, my medicine mostly takes away most of the depression. I get low grade depression and seasonal, but honestly, it really, it was
Yeah.
shockingly better. I still get hypomanic, probably more. But, I had a low grade one, and I think I had one during COVID, but I always tell myself, "Oh, it's not that bad, so it must not be real because it isn't like the other ones." But I had
Yeah.
one last year, and I had started getting the ideas that, my family would be, better without me. I mean, raising kids and living with bipolar disorder is a trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was just yeah, I was just thinking about it and I started like really having suicidal ideation. And I
Yeah.
never really understood that before. I'd tell you up and down that I've never had a suicidal thought because I didn't understand the difference between I thought you had to have a plan. But there's ideation,
Yeah.
realization, and a plan, right? So the ideation, just those thoughts, or just maybe I could just go to sleep until it's guaranteed better, or those kind of thoughts. And so last year, I usually always like do a tagline with my birthday number. So it was like,
45
um,
reasons to stay alive.
exactly. So
Unfollow.
I
Yeah.
turned
I love that.
45 reasons to stay alive. And now I'm just noticing because I'm like the little things like, yeah, it is worth staying alive for, to collect. I wrote about how I collect zebras because they mean something to me. Um
I
and
love those
and I was
zebras. They're
just
so
like,
cool.
yeah. And I was like, I want to stay alive so I see like a real live one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of little things like that just shift. And I think we expect because we have such big emotions and big symptoms, I expect like I don't want to do the little things unless I see a big result. But what I'm realizing is the small things add up, right? Like
Yeah.
doing this,
100%.
like feeling like it's silly, 45 reasons to stay alive, right? I'm like, ugh. And in fact, I literally have a month and I have like 13 to do. I'm like, if you're on my Instagram, there's going to be a lot of reasons to stay alive this next
We
two,
better get
3
on, we
weeks.
better get on this.
I know. And so just those little things, like even when you don't think they're working and you're rolling your eyes, just believe that it's helping. That's what I tell people that when they're depressed, is the drinking the water, is the whatever gonna, make you feel a million times better? Probably not. But it
But it
might help you
helps.
recover faster.
And
It
give
might
yourself credit. It gives
yes,
yourself credit. If you
yes,
take the second, and that's what I always tell people that I talk to. It's like and what you just said, sorry, but that triggered it because you said
yeah,
it either all or nothing for us, right? Oh God. I mean, I didn't want to drink water because I knew I should drink the whole thing. I mean,
right?
that's how my brain works. I don't want to take a sip of water because I haven't taken a sip of water in an hour and I know I should drink the whole thing. So it's better if I just don't.
Yeah,
Right? When in reality, when I started running, I started walking around the block because I was injured and I was overweight and it hurt. And when I started drinking water, I wasn't very good at it. And I still have
yeah,
days where I'm not the best at it. But the days that I'm like, sweet, I drank a lot of water today.
yeah,
Oh, cool. I remembered to do that today.
yeah,
Because if you give yourself those tiny little wins, all of a sudden you're talking to yourself nicer and you're doing more of those little things. Nobody really, I don't think, maybe neurotypicals do, but we wouldn't know. But I don't think anybody really decides to go, all right, I'm going to drink enough water every day for the rest of my life.
yeah,
Like nobody,
yeah,
it's like, I'm going to get a little bit better at it. If I drink 2 cups of water today, I'm going to celebrate it. I'm not
yes,
going to look at it like I didn't drink my 8. I
yeah,
should have drank my 8. Why didn't I drink my 8? It's like, okay, I drank 2. That's
yeah,
one more than yesterday. Look at me go.
exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly.
those little wins are what I hang on to because those are the only things, like you said, that get you the next day. And we don't get big wins all that often, Shaley.
No.
Like, look at life. Just that's not just us, that's everybody.
Yeah.
If you just look forward to the big wins or the big vacation or the big
Yeah.
thing, you're gonna be so disappointed like 98% of the time.
It's so true. It's so true. And I know my therapist said, like, you can actually legit trick your brain. Like she
Mhm.
said, make your goals so tiny that you can't not reach them. Right.
Absolutely.
Like I'm gonna walk to the end of my block. And sometimes I get where I'm like, I'm already here. Like it's like if I give
Done.
myself permission to do something small, maybe I only do the small thing and it's a win and it's a check mark.
Yeah,
But maybe I'm already there. Maybe I'll do a little bit more. I already have my glass,
exactly.
right? I already maybe I'll do a little bit more. I love that. It's definitely the little things. I started on Instagram the Wednesday wins and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep this up. Nobody's going to answer. It's like, "Oh, yes." And people love it and you know what? I keep doing it because I do it, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
give all this
yeah.
advice and then I follow it like half the time. Right? And I just people keep showing up every week and they'll tell you their little thing. And I think you're right about the little things. And I feel like that's correlated me not thinking the little things were important before with hypomania because I would
Yeah.
always compare myself to what I could do, what I could accomplish, how I felt, time management of hypomania, and that is unrealistic. And that made me
Unrealistic.
sick. And so I'm like, "Oh, you only got this done today," but it's like, "Hey, you're comparing
Yeah,
yourself to something that was
but you're
like
not.
making you sick."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
really hard.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, but I think I was running today and it's like, oh man, how do I have this much energy? I haven't ran in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because I'm hypomanic. It's amazing how physical it is too.
Yeah.
So it's like you can go. I remember it vividly that this fall I got depressed, whatever. And one day I ran 4 miles. The
Yeah.
next day I could barely walk up the stairs, and it
Yeah.
wasn't because I was sore.
Yeah.
It's because you literally, physiologically and physically, it feels like you're moving in cement.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable. So,
It's
like, you just
so hard to explain the body part,
it
right?
is,
Like
it is.
the people just don't understand. It's like, just get up, just get up. You're like, I can move to the couch today. That is what I can do.
But if that's all you can do, you have to give yourself credit for that.
Exactly. Yes.
You have to give yourself credit for that because
Yes.
that's a win for that day. And for some people, oh, myself included, a few years ago, the first time I went to the grocery store without my headphones on during the day, I was thrilled.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But that wouldn't sound like anything to most people. We
Yeah.
have to give ourselves credit to build it up. That's where our confidence comes from.
I agree. I agree because otherwise it's just like the fake hypomanic confidence, as good
Yep.
as it feels, it's not real.
Yeah, it goes away. But
Yeah.
so is the depression. On the other side of it, the depression's also not real necessarily. It
Yeah.
is. We feel it, but those feelings are temporary because that's what our brain. So,
Yeah.
that's why it's like either way, don't let yourself
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah, and I tell
Believe
everybody,
those too much.
write down how you feel when you're in it because when I'm depressed, I forget that there can ever be anything
Yeah.
good in life. It doesn't feel like it ever will again. So I have to remind myself, remember, it's not like I don't know how long I'm going to feel like this, but there will, it will end. It will get better. And so I just make like lists and lists, right? Like remember this. And I even have a list like remember when you think, "Oh, I was diagnosed in 2010. It's been 14 years. Maybe you don't need meds." I have one that says, "Remember why you need your meds." Legit list.
So I've forgotten my meds twice in the past 4 days because I started a job and have been terrible about being.
Yeah.
I don't ever need a reminder like that. If I forget my medication, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I start ruminating and can't fall back asleep. I
Yep.
I metabolize my meds quickly, so that 30 hours, I was over.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
thought I was doing really well. I was like, maybe maybe I've been lying to myself this whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 days later, I forgot my meds and woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Was up for 2 hours.
You're like, note to self. Yeah.
Definitely still
Yeah.
have bipolar.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah. I think that's the key is working alongside it, right? And knowing getting to know yourself and finding the successes that make sense. Like it's like a container for me. Like how can I work best in container? How can I stay in my lane? I'm not going to get distracted by all the other lanes and the shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? This is my lane and I'm going to go as fast as I can or as slow as I can. I'm just going to go with my lane, my capacity. And then I think that I'm much better off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
would love to hear more of like we've been talking about the little things. We talked about running, going outside. What are other things that like coping skills or things that help you?
Uh, I mean, asking for help.
Mm,
I mean, that's my biggest one. That's probably one of my biggest passion points, especially being a man.
yep.
Most of us don't like to ask for help, and I still don't always like to. But that's the biggest one. I think that changed my life. I mean, the first day I remember working, I was bartending, and I was like, "Ah, it sucks. I can't do it. I'm so tired. I'm depressed." And I finally walked it back, and I was like, "This is the first time I ever did." It. I was like, "China, can you help for a minute?" And she's like, "Yes, yes, I can. I can. I'm so happy you asked. I've been waiting." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like, "Oh wait, really?
Yeah.
Like I don't have to?" And so it's just like everything else. So asking for help is it's the first thing I do usually if I realize it. I call my godmother and, "Hey, what have you done in this scenario? Does this sound crazy?" I
Yeah.
hate using that word, but
Yeah.
in the clinical sense, does this sound like, and most of the time, fortunately, they say no, and it gives you that confidence, but it helps with the stop to ruminate when you get a second opinion from somebody you
Yes.
trust.
Yeah.
So I try and rely on them as much as I can. Not too much, but if those moments come up, I try to make those calls. I try and make those asks. Not always perfect at it, but I try and catch those ruminating signs, those bad habits quickly.
Mm,
So I mean, I try and eat healthy. That was one of the biggest ones that I overlooked, and I think a lot of people overlooked.
yeah.
I don't. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But I read a lot. It does seem like the Mediterranean diet really helps a lot, or at
Mm,
least things that don't. Bipolar, I think, has a link with inflammation,
mm,
right? And if nothing else, I've found the worse I eat, the worse my body feels, which
yeah.
saps my energy and my confidence.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, eating healthy is one more thing that I can say I did for the day,
Yep.
another small
Yep.
victory for the day, and gives me a little bit more confidence in myself. I cut back on caffeine, which is sad because I love nothing more than coffee. So I don't drink regular sodas or coffee after 4 o'clock anymore. Or I mean,
Yeah.
like caffeinated sodas. I now drink a bunch of like Starry and stuff like that I never would have had before, at night because it's give you have to figure it out. But
Yeah.
hydration is huge for me and
Mm,
therapy. I go to therapy weekly. I had a bipolar therapist. Now
wow.
I'm a PTSD therapist. So we're working through that. I'm always open to adding more. I mean, I
Yeah.
take as much information from people as I can. And so I guess that's the other thing. I think talking, so like when I have people reach out on Instagram when I'm in my worst moments and they ask me for something or for like just to talk or just like, "Hey, this happened. What do you think?" Or like, "Hey, thanks for whatever." It's like that makes me feel like part of a community.
Yeah.
So like if there's ever like a time that I'm that like I will jump on and see if anybody messaged me or see
Yeah.
if like somebody posted something that's relevant that I could or like I might post or comment on one of yours because I want to feel like a part of the community, right? And
Mm,
I think that that's something we overlook because we feel so at least I do. I feel so ostracized a lot. We
yeah.
feel unheard a lot because we try and say things and nobody else really understands them. It's not their
Yeah.
fault. It's
Yeah.
hard to understand a severe mental illness if you don't have one.
And
And
it's
so
exhausting to explain it all the time.
it's so exhausting. So when you jump online, you can say something like, "I'm hypomanic. Oh my God, I think I can go run 10 miles." And you can go, "Oh, wow, I know what that's like. Hey, hang out, maybe run five." We don't have
Yeah.
to explain it. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing in our reality. But you don't feel alone. But it also, lastly, it gives you a little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
Hey,
True.
Shaylee, if I reached out to you and said, "Hey, you've been doing this a really long time. I know you've been hypomanic here and there, but it seems like you handle things really well. You seem like you're a great mother. Can you help me with this?" That's only going to build your confidence, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Right?
And giving people the opportunity. I know when people ask me for help, I am like, deeply touched. And if I have any capacity, I will. And sometimes I remember one of my friends said, I'm like, oh, I could do it myself. Ugh. And she was like, think of it this way. She's like, sometimes you're robbing me of opportunities to get closer to you by helping you. And I was like, oh, yes. And I
Mhm.
think people overlook that when we talk about self-care. I think if equally is community care, right?
Yes.
And you saying me too. And I get like a lot of messages, and sometimes it takes me a while to get back to. And but some people say, probably hear this a lot. I'm like, tell me anyways. It's like it's a brand new message to me, right? Because I'll convince myself, oh, nobody listens to the podcast. I should just quit everything. And then I get a message that says, hey, I listened to this. Or even like, I'm going to hold on so deeply to, you said I was one of the first one you found. Like, my heart feels so warm about that.
Good.
Right?
I'm glad, like it should, because it helped me.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, truly, it did. It helped me. It's like, oh, cool. This person is doing it. She's sharing her story. Oh, and she has kids. Oh, and this, like it is. It's an example. And like, so, that's like, for me, that's why I started doing it. And then of course, it's kind of funny because I was like, oh, I can't really find many. And then, of course, I found like 100 more. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep sharing my story anyways.
Yes.
But
Yes.
because it's fun and it's cool. And if it helps one person, and I've always said, it's like, if one person who's 19 was diagnosed yesterday and realizes, or maybe is questioning,
Yeah.
that they don't have to wait another 14 years to feel better, or 18 years, like,
Oh,
you have hope.
yeah.
And like, just do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Start building
think,
those skills now.
yeah, when I interview people that have got diagnosed very young, it gives me hope. Yes, it's
Yes.
extremely hard, but if they can, have that awareness and have the help, I just think that they're just going to be so much better off. I love that. I love that. Well, I could talk to you forever, but I want
Yes.
to save a little bit for our subscribers to talk about. We're going to talk about in the next episode. If you're a subscriber, I want to talk about work, and I want to also talk about your advocacy online and all the things you do. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably see that Lee is wearing some cool swag. So tell us your handle, where people can message you,
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit about your merch. I want to hear about it.
Well, so I'll give you the little merch story first. So,
Yeah.
when I started doing all this last year, I got very, very excited about everything, and I designed a whole bunch of stuff, and I opened a store in Printify, and it was pretty good quality, but it wasn't like really high quality, and not a really, like a couple of people ordered, but not much, which was cool. But then last year with NAMI, who I ultimately got a job for or with, I had a whole bunch printed off locally to sell. So as
Nice.
a local print shop, I sold them here, and didn't sell a ton. New to the area, and I don't know that everybody there. I have t-shirts. I have a handful of these sweatshirts left,
Yeah.
and if bunch of people are interested, I can get more, but I have a decent amount of these left, and most I have in most sizes, so they can just actually contact me on Instagram. I'm
Perfect.
just sending them out. I'm just doing Venmo and sending them out because it's just really about like recouping the
Yeah, for
cost.
sure.
But the t-shirts I think are really cool. They have United by Mental Health on the front, and then what I tried to do is list basically all of the neurodivergent conditions that we and other people like us go through, with just this little thing on the back. So it's less about mine, but so I started everything under benefits of bipolar. I
Yeah.
created the logo myself, did all that, and with Eliminate the Stigma. I never really, and this is still true. I mean, you say this is bipolar because you're trying to put a great face to
Yeah.
bipolar, right? You're trying to show
Yeah.
people that it doesn't look terrible. It looks
Yeah.
fantastic a lot of the time. Sometimes it looks terrible, but basically that was my goal. And so I kind of created that, and I wanted to, just get more of those out there. But
Love it.
if anybody's interested, it's at benefits under dash of under dash bipolar on Instagram.
Yep.
And my YouTube channel, you're almost best off searching my name. I'm not as big as Shaley yet,
Oh,
but Lee Formella is my name. Otherwise, it's at benefits of bipolar. You should come across it eventually.
yeah.
But yeah, it's growing. I have some really cool interviews on there that I've been able to do. Just kind of getting my feet wet. Maybe someday, we'll build it up to the same level, but it's fun. So I appreciate it. Like I said, do please reach out, ask me anything.
Yes.
have a lot of
Run,
fun.
don't walk, follow. Yeah, and if you ever need someone to come on your podcast, I'm up for it.
Consider it done, Shaley. Consider it
That
done.
would
It was
be
just a
awesome.
lot of fun, honestly. Yeah, just don't hold with bated breath. I have a couple
Yes.
of people I've asked. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I just started a job and have nothing left, but we'll get there.
Yes, yes. And I'm all about that. I'm all about like I just believe that it'll happen when it's the right time, right? I mean, I talked to you about maybe, maybe one day do you want to be on? And you're like, yeah. And then this just happened. So it works out. I love that so much. So
Yes.
friends, run, don't walk over to follow Lee everywhere. Benefits bipolar. And get yourself a sweatshirt, man. Get yourself a sweatshirt. One of the most beautiful things I think we can do to end stigma is to support those that are trying. And it is hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for Lee to put ourselves out there and sell things, and
It is.
me even ask for the subscriptions. It took me
Yep.
forever, but I think that sharing our real lived experience is emotional labor and it's beautiful work. And I think that it is worthy to be celebrated by likes and shares, and also if you have the funds. So
And if you
yes,
don't want bipolar on the front, that's why I made the other one that says
yes,
United by Mental Health. It's all in
yes,
green writing. I'll send you pictures of the actual shirt. So, and
yes,
I do, and I have, it is fun because I have had a lot of people actually be like, do you have bipolar? Oh, me too.
yeah. It
And they've
opens
never
up
told anybody ever.
conversation. Yes,
Absolutely. It really does. It sounds so cliche. I made my last reel I made one. I'm like, no, it sounds cliche, but it really does. It opens up conversation. You get to meet new people. So I'm going to
it's true.
I'll stop talking there, but thank you.
No, I love it. I love it so much. Before we do our next little stint, I'm wondering if there was someone that was struggling right now, like you. Maybe they're struggling, in the throes of mental illness. Maybe they're in the throes of addiction or an addiction to gambling. What would be a word of encouragement from someone like you that understands?
Hold on to that little bit of hope.
Mm,
I don't know what it was. If there's anything I would tell them I understand, I would sit next to them and watch them gamble and just be there with them and just say,
mm,
hey, do you have like an ounce of hope somewhere like in your little toe?
yeah,
Hold on to it. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up for what you're doing right now. It
yeah,
might not, probably isn't necessarily your fault, but it might be time to ask for a little bit of help.
yeah,
That's what I would tell somebody if they're ready, and if
yeah,
not, hold on to that tiny little hope until you're ready. I don't
yeah,
know why I'm here, Shaylee. I really don't. I've
yeah,
had people ask me that how, and it's like I don't know. I don't know where that, but for some reason, when I was sitting in front of those gambling machines, when I was pouring another drink, something kept me here.
mm,
And something's keeping you here. Hang on to that. Don't give up. Don't let it tip over the edge because someday at some point you might find that one little thing that helps, and that's all that it'll take. And there
yeah,
are those of us who've been just as bad as you, maybe worse, maybe not quite as bad. I don't know, but none of those levels matter. We've been there and now we're
yeah,
here. We're in a
yeah.
place where life is okay. We're in a place where we treat our loved ones the way we want to. It's
Mm.
hard work, but it's worth it. And you have to start somewhere.
Ugh, that's beautiful. I am so glad that you held on to that hope. I'm
Mhm.
so glad that you showed up for yourself and now that you're showing up for others, and I'm grateful to know you. And
Thank, thank you.
whether you like it or not, you are now considered a bipolar bestie. So
Thank you.
you're
I'm honored. I'm honored.
yeah, that's so awesome. I'm really looking forward to our next conversation. And yeah, like I said, go follow. We answer the messages we care, and I know that Lee would love to hear from you and love. Yeah, give him a follow, wear the shirts, do all the things. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. This is Bipolar. Thanks again for tuning in. You can find video versions of This is Bipolar on our YouTube channel. We also have all our previous and soon to be future episodes of the podcast on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, and Google Play. We spend most of our time on Instagram at this.is.bipolar. There is a vibrant community there where we have conversations and post different ideas and different strategies, and we'd just love for you to join us there. It is so helpful if you enjoy our work or think it would be helpful to someone if you could like and share and save and follow us in all or any of those spaces. If you're a listener for the podcast, if you could leave a review, we would be forever grateful. Again, thank you for being here with us. Let's get the word out. Let's share lived experiences so that we can change the ideas that people have about bipolar and help those of us that live with it feel less alone. This is bipolar.